The rain drummed a soft rhythm against the windows of our Seattle home, a cozy craftsman nestled in the shadow of the Space Needle. I sat at my easel, sketching the outline of a new commission, an abstract swirl of blues and grays, meant to capture the city's moody skyline. The scent of fresh paint mingled with the damp air seeping through a cracked window. My hands moved with purpose, but my mind was elsewhere, tangled in a web of unease growing for weeks. A mechanical voice sliced through the quiet, sharp, and otherworldly. "Do you wish to bind the pain transfer system?" I froze, my pencil hovering over the canvas. The voice wasn't new. Years ago, a shadowy figure had appeared in a fevered dream after a car accident that nearly took my sight, a faceless entity cloaked in mist. It offered me a tool for justice, a system to transfer pain to those who wronged me, but at a cost my ability to love would be severed, leaving my heart a silent gallery of memories. I dismissed it as a hallucination, a product of painkillers and trauma. Yet here it was again, clear as the rain outside. My husband, Dr. Ethan Carter, stood in the doorway of my studio, his broad shoulders filling the frame. His dark hair was slightly tousled, his hazel eyes warm with what I'd once mistaken for devotion. "Clara, you're still working. You need to rest those eyes." His voice was smooth and practiced, like the bedside manner he used at Seattle General. He stepped closer, holding a mug of chamomile tea. "I know you're stressed about the surgery, but trust me, general anesthesia is a bad idea. It's toxic to your brain and sensory nerves. You're an artist, your vision and senses are everything." I set my pencil down, my fingers trembling slightly. The surgery was for my retina, which was damaged in a recent accident. Ethan had been relentless about avoiding general anesthesia, pushing for local instead. His reasoning sounded logical, but something in his tone, a faint edge of insistence, set my nerves on edge. "Dr. Patel said general anesthesia is safer," I countered, watching his face. "He mentioned precision instruments. If I moved during the procedure, I could go blind." Ethan waved a hand dismissively, his smile too quick. "Patel's just being cautious. It's a minor retinal repair. Nothing's going to go wrong." He set the tea on my desk, his fingers brushing mine. The touch, once comforting, now felt like a calculated gesture. Before I could respond, Mia, his adopted sister, appeared behind him. Her auburn hair was pulled into a loose bun, her green eyes wide with concern. "Clara, Ethan's a doctor. He knows what's best. You should listen to him." She stepped into the studio, filling the space like an unwelcome shadow. Mia had been part of Ethan's family since she was 13, adopted by his parents after her mother, a family friend, passed away. She'd moved into our home after college, claiming she needed a place to start her career as a graphic designer. Ethan's mother, Linda, had insisted we take her in, calling it a family obligation. I'd agreed, wanting to please Ethan, but Mia's constant presence had begun to feel like an intrusion. Their faces so full of worry sent me a chill. I glanced at the tea, its steam curling like a warning. The mechanical voice echoed again. "Do you wish to bind the pain transfer system?" My heart pounded. I didn't answer, not yet. Instead, I forced a smile. "I'll think about it, Ethan. I need to finish this sketch." Ethan nodded, his expression softening. "You're stubborn, Clara, but that's why I love you. Don't push yourself too hard." He and Mia exchanged a glance, brief but loaded, before they left the studio. Alone again, I stared at my canvas. The abstract lines seemed to pulse with my unease, each stroke reflecting the chaos inside me. I thought back to the dream entity, its cryptic offer haunting me. The accident that sparked it had been a turning point. I'd been a struggling artist, then painting vibrant abstracts that captured Seattle's soul, its rain-soaked streets, its misty mountains. After the crash, my work gained depth, a raw emotion that drew collectors. My pieces are sold for thousands each, a window into my heart. The idea of losing my sight, my art, was unbearable. And now this system, whatever it was, felt like a lifeline or a curse. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my art channel on YouTube, where I shared time-lapses of my painting process. The latest video had thousands of views, fans raving about the emotion in my work. I typed a quick comment, "Hey everyone, thanks for the love." If this story of my next painting resonates with you, hit that like button, drop a comment about your favorite Seattle vibe, and subscribe to join me on this wild creative journey. Something tells me the next piece is going to be a game changer. It felt natural, a way to connect with my audience while masking the turmoil in my life. Little did I know how prophetic those words would be. The rain outside grew heavier, mirroring the storm in my chest. Ethan's insistence, Mia's overly sweet, support the strange voice they swirled together, painting a picture I wasn't ready to face. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. And if I didn't act, I might lose more than my sight. The Seattle rain had softened to a drizzle when I woke the next morning, my head foggy from a restless night. The studio couch creaked beneath me as I sat up, my sketchbook open to the half-finished abstract I'd been working on. The lines meant to evoke the Puget Sound's restless waves now looked jagged, almost angry. My vision blurred slightly, a reminder of the injury that had brought me to this point. I rubbed my eyes, wincing at the dull ache that had become my constant companion. It had started 3 weeks ago, in the garage of our Capitol Hill home. A skilled orthopedic surgeon, Ethan, recently took up boxing to blow off steam from long hospital shifts. He'd installed a punching bag, its red leather gleaming under the fluorescent lights. I'd been skeptical Ethan wasn't athletic, but he insisted it helped him focus. One evening, as I sorted art supplies in the garage, he called, "Clara, come check this out." His voice was playful, almost boyish, a tone that had once made my heart flutter. Without thinking, I walked over my sneakers, scuffing the concrete floor. Ethan was mid-swing, his fists pummeling the bag with surprising force. "Look at this combo." He grinned, then stepped back. The bag swung forward faster than I expected and slammed into my face. Pain exploded across my eyes, white-hot and blinding. I crumpled to the ground, clutching my face, tears streaming involuntarily. Ethan dropped to his knees beside me, his voice frantic. "Clara, oh my God, I'm so sorry I didn't see you there." He cupped my face, his hands trembling, and helped me to my feet. "I'm such an idiot. Are you okay?" His apologies were endless, his hazel eyes brimming with guilt. He even slapped his own cheek, muttering about his carelessness. I believed him, or wanted to. "It's fine, Ethan," I said, my voice shaky. "Just an accident." He drove me to urgent care, holding my hand the whole way, promising to make it right. The doctor there found no immediate damage, but my vision began to falter over the next few days. Colors bled together, edges softened, and my latest painting, a commission for a local gallery, became a struggle to complete. Ethan arranged a consultation at Seattle General where he worked. Dr. Patel, a seasoned ophthalmologist with kind eyes and a steady demeanor, examined me in a sterile exam room. "Clara, you've got retinal damage in both eyes," he said, his voice gentle but firm. "It's likely from the impact. We need to schedule surgery to repair the tears before they worsen. General anesthesia is standard. It ensures you stay still, minimizing risks." I nodded, my stomach twisting at the thought of losing my sight. My art was my soul, each canvas a piece of me. Blindness would end that. Ethan, standing beside me, shook his head. "General anesthesia's too risky, Clara. It can mess with your brain and nerves, especially for an artist like you. Local anesthesia is enough. I've seen it done." His tone was confident, almost commanding. Dr. Patel frowned. "Ethan, this isn't orthopedics. Eye surgery requires precision. Even a slight movement could cause permanent damage." Ethan's jaw tightened, but he smiled at me. "Trust me, Clara. I know what's best." I wanted to believe him. Ethan had always been my rock, charming, brilliant, the kind of man who could talk through any crisis. We'd met at an art gallery 5 years ago where he'd bought one of my early abstracts, a chaotic burst of color inspired by Pike Place Market. He'd said it spoke to him like he saw my heart in the paint. We married a year later and I thought we were happy. But now his insistence felt less like care and more like control. Back home, I retreated to my studio, a converted sunroom filled with canvases and turpentine scent. My latest piece was for a collector who'd paid $10,000, drawn to the emotional depth of my work. Critics called my abstracts windows into the human condition, their value climbing with each show. If I went blind, would my art become a relic prized only for its scarcity? The thought made my chest ache. Ethan knocked softly, stepping inside with a glass of water. "You okay, babe?" he asked, his voice honeyed. "Don't stress about the surgery. I'll be there every step of the way." He set the glass down, his fingers lingering on mine. I smiled, but my mind replayed Dr. Patel's warning and Ethan's quick dismissal. Mia's voice echoed from the kitchen, calling Ethan to dinner. She'd been cooking more lately, her laughter filling our home like an unwelcome guest. I'd always found her closeness with Ethan odd, but I'd chalked it up to their family bond. Now I wasn't so sure. I sipped the water, my eyes drifting to the punching bag incident. Had Ethan really been careless, or was there something darker at play? The mechanical voice hadn't returned, but its offer lingered a shadow in my mind. I set the glass down, my resolve hardening. I needed to know the truth about Ethan, Mia, and the accident. If my instincts were right, I was walking into a trap, and my art, my sight, my life depended on seeing it clearly. The Seattle dawn painted the sky in muted grays, the light filtering through my studio's skylight and casting soft shadows on my latest canvas. I stood before it, my hands smudged with charcoal, trying to refine the jagged lines of my abstract, a turbulent swirl of blues and silvers inspired by the Puget Sound's restless tides. Each stroke carried my unease, a silent scream against the blur that clouded my vision. The retinal damage from the punching bag incident 3 weeks ago had worsened, turning colors into smears and edges into ghosts. My art, once my sanctuary, now felt like a race against time. I stepped back, rubbing my temples. The ache in my eyes was a constant reminder of the surgery looming at Seattle General. Dr. Patel's words echoed general anesthesia was the safest choice to keep me still during the delicate procedure. Yet Ethan, my husband, insisted on local anesthesia, claiming it protected my senses. His persistence gnawed at me, a splinter under my skin. Was he worried about my health, or was something else at play? Ethan's family had always been a puzzle. His mother, Linda, a stern woman with sharp eyes, had raised him alone after his father left when Ethan was 10. Years later, Linda adopted Mia, the teenage daughter of a family friend who died in a car crash. With her auburn hair and quick smile, Mia had become a fixture in Ethan's life, trailing him like a shadow. When she graduated from college, a graphic design major with big dreams, but little drive, Linda insisted we let her move into our Capitol Hill home. She's family, Linda had said, her tone brooking no argument. She needs a fresh start in Seattle. Ethan agreed without hesitation, and I opened our doors, eager to keep the peace. Mia's presence had shifted the air in our house. She filled it with laughter and home-cooked meals, but her closeness with Ethan felt too intimate or familiar. I'd catch them sharing glances over dinner, their hands brushing as they passed dishes. I'd dismissed it as sibling affection, but now with my vision faltering and Ethan's strange insistence on the surgery, those moments replayed in my mind like warning signs. I sank onto the studio couch, my sketchbook heavy in my lap. My art had always been my voice, each canvas a story of Seattle's soul, its rain-soaked streets, misty mountains, and vibrant chaos. My abstracts caught the eye of collectors, and their value climbed with each gallery show. A recent piece inspired by Pike Place Market's frenetic energy had sold for $12,000, its emotional depth praised in reviews. If I lost my sight, my work would become a relic, its value soaring as collectors chased the tragedy of a blinded artist. The thought twisted my stomach. Was that what Ethan wanted? The studio door creaked open, and Ethan stepped in his white coat slung over his arm from a late shift at the hospital. His dark hair was mussed, his hazel eyes softening as they met mine. "Clara, you're still up. You need to rest." He set a glass of chamomile tea on my desk, his fingers grazing mine. The gesture, once a comfort, now felt rehearsed. "I know the surgery's weighing on you," he said, sitting beside me, "but local anesthesia's the way to go. I've seen the studies general can dull your senses, mess with your creativity. You're too talented to risk that." His words were warm, but they landed like stones. I studied his face, searching for the man I'd fallen for 5 years ago at a Belltown gallery. He'd bought my first significant piece, a chaotic burst of color, and said it spoke to his soul. We'd built a life together, or so I thought. Now his concern felt like a mask. "I trust Dr. Patel," I said carefully. "He says general anesthesia is the standard for eye surgery." Ethan's smile tightened, Patel's old school. "I'm thinking about you, Clara." He leaned closer, his hand on my shoulder. "You're my world." The words should have warmed me, but they didn't. Mia's laughter floated from the kitchen, breaking the moment. "Ethan, dinner's ready," she called, her voice bright. He stood, flashing me a grin. "Eat with us. Mia made your favorite lasagna." I shook my head. "I need to finish this sketch." He nodded, but his eyes lingered, as if gauging my mood. As he left, I stared at the tea, its steam curling like a question mark. The mechanical voice from last night hadn't returned, but its offer haunted me. The dream entity had warned of a cost, my ability to love, but also promised power. I sipped the tea, its warmth doing little to ease the chill in my chest. Ethan and Mia's closeness, the accident, and the surgery debate were pieces of a puzzle I wasn't ready to solve. But I couldn't shake the feeling that my life, art, and sight hung in the balance. The tea was still warm in my hands, its chamomile scent cloying as I sat in my studio, and the Seattle rain was a steady patter outside. I'd been trying to refine my abstract, the Puget Sound's waves, now a storm of charcoal and ink, but my vision blurred worse than ever. Each stroke felt like a battle, my hands trembling with the effort to see clearly. The retinal damage was stealing my art, and Ethan's push for local anesthesia loomed over me like a dark cloud. I set the sketchbook down, my head heavy, and took another sip of the tea Ethan had brought. Within minutes, a wave of drowsiness crashed over me, my eyelids drooping. I stumbled to the studio couch, collapsing as the world faded. I woke with a start, the room dim under the skylight's faint glow. The tea glass lay on its side, a puddle staining the hardwood floor. I'd spilled most of it, which explained why I was awake so soon. My heart raced as I sat up, the fog of sleep replaced by a sharp clarity. Voices drifted from the hallway, low and conspiratorial. I crept to the studio door, my bare feet silent on the cold floor, and followed the sound to the bedroom. The door was ajar, a sliver of light spilling out. I peered through the gap and my breath caught. Ethan and Mia were there naked, their bodies entwined on our bed. Mia's auburn hair spilled across the pillow, her hands tracing Ethan's back as he kissed her neck. My chest tightened, a silent scream trapped in my throat. I wanted to barge in to tear them apart, but my feet were rooted to the ground, my hand covering my mouth to stifle a sob. Their whispers cut through the air like knives. "Will Clara suspect anything?" Mia asked, her voice soft but edged with excitement. Ethan chuckled, his hand stroking her hair. "Relax, I put sleeping pills in her tea. I checked and she's out cold in the studio. She drank it all." My stomach churned. The spilled tea had saved me. I pressed closer to the door, my heart pounding as Mia spoke again. "Will she agree to local anesthesia? Can we pull this off?" "She will," Ethan said, his tone smug. "Clara's all about her art. She doesn't question me, I make the decisions. I'll keep pushing and she'll cave. Once she's blind, her paintings will be worth a fortune. Collectors love a tragic story. This house, her money, it'll all be ours." Mia giggled, her fingers trailing down his chest. "And if she dies," Ethan's silence was a blade to my heart. Finally, he said, "Let's see how she acts when she's blind. We will keep her around if she stays quiet and covers for us. If not—" He didn't finish, but the implication hung heavy in the air. I stumbled back to the studio, my legs shaking. Tears burned my eyes, but I forced them back, my grief hardening into rage. Ethan, the man who'd vowed to love me, was plotting to blind me, maybe kill me for my art and our home. Mia, whom I'd welcomed as family, was his lover and accomplice. The betrayal was a wound deeper than any physical pain, but it sharpened my resolve. I sank onto the couch, my mind racing. The mechanical voice returned cold and clear. "Do you wish to bind the pain transfer system?" I remembered the dream entity, its misty form offering me power at a terrible price. Losing my ability to love seemed abstract then, but now with Ethan's betrayal raw in my chest, it felt like a small sacrifice. Love had already betrayed me. I whispered, "Yes, bind to Ethan Carter." A hum filled the air like static from an old radio. System initializing. Complete. I tested it, pinching my arm hard behind my back. The pain was sharp but bearable. In the bedroom, Ethan gasped, clutching his arm. "What the hell?" he muttered. Mia's voice was concerned. "You okay?" He brushed it off, but I smiled coldly in the dark. The system was real, and it was mine. I returned to my canvas, picking up my charcoal. The abstract took on new life, its lines sharper, angrier, reflecting the storm inside me. My art had always been my truth. Now it would be my weapon. Ethan and Mia thought they could control me, but they didn't know I'd gained the upper hand. Tomorrow I'd play their game, pretend to trust to love while planning their downfall. The rain outside roared, and I let it fuel me, each stroke a vow they'd pay for every lie. The Seattle rain had dwindled to a faint mist, cloaking our Capitol Hill home in a silvery haze. I sat alone in my studio, the skylight above casting dim light on my unfinished canvas, a chaotic abstract of blues and blacks, mirroring the storm raging in my chest. The revelation from last night burned in my mind. Ethan, my husband, and Mia, his adopted sister, were lovers plotting to blind me during my retinal surgery, to seize my art's soaring value and our home. Their words, Ethan's cold calculation, Mia's gleeful cruelty, played on a loop, each syllable a knife twisting in my heart. I'd trusted them, loved them, and they'd betrayed me most cruelly. I gripped my charcoal, trembling not with fear, but with a burgeoning rage. My art had always been my refuge, each stroke a piece of my soul poured onto canvas. My abstracts inspired by Seattle's moody landscapes, the churning Puget Sound, the fog-draped cascades had won collectors' hearts. A recent piece of vibrant chaos of Pike Place Market had fetched $15,000 at auction, its emotional depth lauded in art blogs. If I went blind, my work's value would skyrocket, as Ethan had gloated. The thought of them profiting from my loss fueled a fire I hadn't known I possessed. The mechanical voice broke through my thoughts, cold and precise. Do you wish to bind the pain transfer system? It was the same voice from 2 nights ago, echoing a dream from years past, when a car accident had nearly stolen my sight. In that dream, a shadowy entity had offered me this system, a tool to transfer pain to those who wronged me, at the cost of my ability to love. It felt like a fevered fantasy back then, but now with Ethan and Mia's betrayal laid bare, it was a lifeline. Love had already failed me, its loss seemed a small price to pay for justice. I whispered yes. Bind to Ethan Carter. A low hum filled the studio like static from a distant radio. System initializing. Complete. My breath caught. Was it real? I needed to know. I dug my nails into my palm, the pain sharp and grounding. Down the hall, Ethan yelped. What the hell? I crept to the studio door, peering out. He stood in the kitchen, clutching his hand, his face twisted in confusion. Mia, stirring coffee, frowned. You okay, Ethan? He shook his head, flexing his fingers. Just a weird pinch. It's nothing. My lips curled into a cold smile. The system worked. I had absolute power over the man who'd planned to ruin me. I returned to my canvas, my strokes bolder, the abstract taking on a new ferocity. Each line was a vow Ethan and Mia would feel the weight of their betrayal. But the dream entity's warning lingered. Losing my ability to love would leave me hollow. I pushed the thought aside. Love had brought me here to this moment of betrayal. What use was it now? Ethan knocked on the studio door, his voice soft but insistent. Clara, you up? We need to talk about the surgery. He stepped inside, his white coat draped over his arm, his hazel eyes scanning me with feigned concern. Mia trailed behind, her auburn hair, loose, her smile too sweet. Clara, Ethan's right, she said, leaning against the doorframe. Local anesthesia is safer. You don't want to risk your creativity. I studied them, their faces masks of care hiding their sinister plot. Ethan's charm, once my anchor, now felt like a trap. Mia's presence, once a minor irritation, was now a threat. I remembered their closeness growing up, how Mia, adopted at 13, had idolized Ethan, trailing him through high school, their laughter filling Linda's house. I'd thought it sweet, a sibling bond forged by shared loss. Now I saw it for what it was, something twisted, dangerous. I'm still thinking, I said, keeping my voice steady. Dr. Patel made a strong case for general anesthesia. Ethan's smile faltered, but he recovered quickly. Patel's cautious, but I know what's best for you, Clara. I've seen the risks in the OR. Trust me. Mia nodded, her eyes gleaming with something I now recognized as malice. I stood, brushing charcoal from my hands. I'll decide soon. I need to finish this piece first. Ethan sighed, his hand resting on my shoulder. Don't push yourself too hard. Your eyes need rest. His touch, once a comfort, sent a shiver down my spine. As they left, I locked the studio door, my heart pounding. The system was my secret, my weapon. I'd play their game tomorrow, feigning trust while wielding the power to turn their plan against them. The rain outside whispered encouragement, and I painted on each stroke a step toward vengeance. Morning light filtered through the studio's skylight, painting my canvas in soft golds. The abstract was nearly complete, its stormy blues and blacks now laced with fiery reds, a reflection of the rage and resolve burning in my chest. My vision blurred at the edges, the retinal damage a constant reminder of the surgery looming at Seattle General. Ethan and Mia's betrayal had shattered my world, but the pain transfer system gave me control. I'd bound it to Ethan last night, testing it with a pinch that made him wince. Now I had to play my part, pretend to trust, to love, while setting the stage for their downfall. I stepped out of the studio, and the house was quiet except for the clinking of dishes in the kitchen. Ethan sat at the table, sipping coffee, his white coat neatly pressed for his hospital shift. Mia stood at the counter, slicing fruit, her auburn hair catching the light. They looked like a perfect family, but I knew the truth. They were lovers, plotting to blind me for profit. My paintings, with their raw emotion, were climbing in value, $15,000 for the last one, with collectors clamoring for more. If I went blind as Ethan planned, my work would become a tragic commodity, and they'd claim it all. Morning. Clara. Ethan said, his smile warm but calculated. Sleep okay? He gestured to a plate of pancakes. Mia made breakfast. Join us. I forced a smile, sitting across from him. Thanks. I'm just nervous about the surgery. My voice was soft, vulnerable, precisely what they expected. Mia slid a plate toward me, her green eyes studying me. You'll be fine, she said. Ethan's got your back. Right, Ethan, always, he said, reaching for my hand. His touch felt like ice, but I let him hold it, playing the devoted wife. Inside, I seethed, recalling their whispered plan, local anesthesia, to ensure I'd move during surgery, lose my sight, and hand them my wealth. The system was my shield, and I'd use it to make Ethan suffer. At Seattle General, the waiting room smelled of antiseptic and coffee. Dr. Patel, his kind eyes creased with concern, reviewed my chart. Clara, we're set for tomorrow. General anesthesia is the safest option. Any movement could damage your retina further. He glanced at Ethan, who stood beside me, his arm around my shoulders. Ethan shook his head. Clara doesn't need that, local's fine. I've seen it work in similar cases. General anesthesia can dull her senses and her creativity. She's an artist, Dr. Patel. His voice was smooth, authoritative, but I caught the flicker of excitement in his eyes. Dr. Patel frowned, adjusting his glasses. Ethan, this isn't orthopedics. Eye surgery demands precision. Clara, what do you think? I hesitated, glancing at Ethan then. Mia, who'd tagged along, her smile encouraging. They thought they had me cornered. I took a deep breath, channeling my rage into a mask of trust. Ethan's right, I said, my voice steady. I trust him. Let's do local anesthesia. Dr. Patel's eyes widened. Clara, are you sure this is your vision? I'm sure, I said, meeting Ethan's gaze. His smile widened, a glint of triumph in his hazel eyes. Mia's lips twitched, barely hiding her glee. They thought their plan was falling into place. Local anesthesia would make me vulnerable, ensure their victory. But they didn't know about the system, the power humming in my veins. Ethan squeezed my shoulder. You're tougher than you look, Clara. I knew you'd see it my way. Mia nodded, her voice syrupy. You're so strong, Clara. We'll be there for you. I nodded back, my heart cold. Thank you both. Inside, I laughed a bitter, silent laugh. The system would turn their scheme against them. I remembered Ethan's words from their betrayal. He'd endure surgery without anesthesia. Well, he'd get his chance to prove it. As we left the hospital, the Seattle skyline loomed through the mist, its gray towers mirroring my resolve. Back home, I retreated to my studio, locking the door. I added final touches to my abstract, the reds blazing like fire. My art was my truth, and now it was my rebellion. Ethan and Mia thought they'd won, but tomorrow I'd show them the cost of betrayal in the operating room. The system's power pulsed in my mind, and I smiled, ready to paint their ruin with every stroke of pain. The operating room at Seattle General was a sterile cocoon, its fluorescent lights glaring down on me as I lay on the table, my heart a steady drumbeat of resolve. The air smelled of antiseptic, sharp and clinical, a stark contrast to the warm chaos of my studio. My retinal surgery was about to begin, the procedure to save my vision from the damage caused by Ethan's accidental punching bag blow. I'd played my part perfectly, agreeing to local anesthesia, as Ethan and his lover Mia had urged, believing it would ensure my blindness and their gain. They didn't know about the pain transfer system I'd bound to Ethan, a secret weapon born from a dream entity's offer years ago, a tool for justice that would cost me my ability to love. Dr. Patel stood over me, his kind eyes shadowed with concern behind his surgical mask. Clara, are you sure about no anesthesia? This is delicate work. Any movement could cost you your sight. His voice was steady, but I caught the edge of disbelief. Beside him, a nurse adjusted the tray of gleaming instruments, their metallic clinks echoing in the quiet room. I nodded, my voice calm. I'm sure, Dr. Patel. Ethan said he'd do it without anesthesia, and I trust his judgment. The lie tasted bitter, but it was necessary. Ethan, my husband, had boasted he could endure such a surgery, and now he'd feel every moment of it. Mia, his adopted sister and accomplice, stood outside with him, likely smirking at their supposed victory. They thought my compliance meant their plan to blind me and profit from my art's soaring value was unfolding perfectly. Dr. Patel sighed, shaking his head. All right, Clara. If you feel any pain, say so immediately. We'll stop. He lifted a delicate tool, its tip glinting under the lights, and gently opened my eyelids. I braced myself, expecting agony, but as the instrument touched my retina, I felt nothing. No sting, no burn. The pain transfer system was working, redirecting every sensation to Ethan. Outside the operating room, a piercing scream shattered the silence. My eyes. It hurts. Ethan's voice was raw, desperate. Another cry followed, fainter but frantic. Ethan, what's wrong? Your eyes are fine. Mia's panic cut through the walls. Dr. Patel froze his tool, hovering. "What the hell was that?" he muttered, glancing at the nurse. She rushed to the door, peering out. "It's Dr. Carter." He's on the floor, clutching his face. Dr. Patel's brow furrowed, but he refocused on me. "Clara, you okay?" I clenched my thigh under the surgical drape hard enough to draw sweat to my forehead, mimicking pain to avoid suspicion. "I'm fine," I gasped, my voice strained. "Keep going. If anyone discovered the system, I'd be a lab rat in some research facility." I had to play the part, brave, enduring, unaware of Ethan's collapse. The surgery continued, Dr. Patel's hands steady, despite the chaos outside. Ethan's screams faded, replaced by muffled voices. Nurses Mia, someone calling for a stretcher. I lay still, my mind racing. The system was exacting justice, turning Ethan's plot against him. My art, my abstracts of Seattle's soul, its rain-soaked streets, its misty mountains were my life. A recent piece, a turbulent swirl of Pike Place Market, had sold for $15,000, its emotional depth drawing collectors. Ethan and Mia wanted to exploit that, betting my blindness would make my work priceless. They'd underestimated me. As Dr. Patel finished, he taped gauze over my eyes, his voice soft. "It's done, Clara. The surgery was a success. You should regain vision after the stitches come out in a week." I nodded, relief mingling with cold satisfaction. Ethan's pain had ensured my safety, but the cost of the system lingered in my mind. Love was already slipping away, and my heart was a gallery of fading memories. I pushed the thought aside. Survival came first. A nurse wheeled me out the gauze, plunging me into darkness. "Where's Ethan?" I asked, feigning concern. Dr. Patel's voice was grim. He had a sudden episode. "He's in observation room B. Let's check on him." As we moved, I heard Mia's frantic whispers, then Ethan's pained groans. The system had struck its first blow, and I felt a thrill of power. But I had to stay careful. Ethan and Mia were still dangerous, and my blindness, temporary or not, left me vulnerable. The Seattle rain pattered outside, a rhythm of triumph, but I knew this was only the beginning. The hospital corridor was a blur of sounds, beeping monitors, hurried footsteps, the low hum of voices, as Dr. Patel wheeled me toward observation room B. My eyes, wrapped in thick gauze, left me in darkness, heightening every noise. The successful retinal surgery had saved my vision. Still, the pain transfer system had done more, delivering Ethan's screams as he collapsed outside the operating room, overwhelmed by the pain meant for me. My husband and his lover Mia had plotted to blind me to profit from my art's tragedy, but the system born from a dream entity's costly bargain had turned their scheme against them. Now I had to escape their grasp before they regrouped. Dr. Patel's voice broke the silence. "Clara, Ethan's stable, but he's in rough shape." "They're running tests." His tone held a mix of concern and confusion. I nodded, keeping my voice soft. What happened to him inside? I knew the system had redirected my surgical pain to Ethan, exposing his vulnerability. But I had to play the worried wife, lest anyone suspect my secret. We reached the observation room where Ethan's groans greeted us. "Clara," he rasped, his voice weak. "I'm sorry. I wasn't there for you." Mia chimed in, her tone dripping with false sincerity. "Yeah, Clara, we'll take care of you now. Don't worry." Her words were a trap, a promise of danger if I returned home with them. Their plan had failed, but they'd try again, maybe something worse. I gripped the wheelchair's arms, my heart cold. I appreciate that I said, my voice trembling just enough to sell the act. But I need rest. I'll stay with a friend for now. Ethan protested, his voice sharpening. "Clara, you can't see. You need us. Come home." Mia echoed him, her sweetness cloying. "We're family, Clara. Who else will look after you?" Before I could respond, a familiar voice cut through the tension. "Clara, I'm so sorry I'm late. It was Sophie, my best friend." Her voice breathless from rushing. She'd flown back from a tech conference in San Francisco last night, her loyalty a lifeline I'd counted on. "I went to the OR, but they said you were done. Took me forever to find you." She grabbed my hand, her grip warm and steady. "I'm taking you to my place. I'm off all week." Ethan's voice hardened. "That's too much trouble, Sophie. Mia and I can handle it." Mia added, "Yeah, I'll take time off work. It's no big deal." But Sophie was undeterred, her tone firm. "No trouble at all. Ethan, you're in no shape to care for anyone, look at you. And Mia, didn't you start that design job? You can't keep bailing." Dr. Patel, sensing the tension, stepped in. "Clara should decide. Ethan, you need to focus on your own recovery." I squeezed Sophie's hand, gratitude flooding me. "I'll go with Sophie," I said, my voice final. Ethan muttered something, but his strength was gone. As Sophie wheeled me away, the hospital's antiseptic smell faded, replaced by the cool, damp air of Seattle's streets. The rain was a soft caress, a reminder of freedom. I couldn't see the skyline, but felt its presence, the Space Needle, the misty cascades, the city that inspired my art. I settled onto her couch at Sophie's apartment in Queen Anne, the gauze still binding my eyes. Sophie bustled in the kitchen, brewing coffee, her voice light but curious. "Clara, what's going on with Ethan?" He looked like he was in agony back there. I hesitated, then told her everything. The affair, the drugged tea, their plan to blind me. Sophie's gasp was sharp, those bastards. We should expose them and get Ethan fired. Her anger was fierce, but I shook my head. Not yet. I have a plan. As we talked, I overheard two nurses outside Sophie's open window, their voices carrying from the hospital across the street. "Did you hear about Dr. Carter?" one said. "He had a freak episode during his wife's surgery, canceled a procedure today because of it. The patient's family is pissed." The other nurse laughed. "Yeah, he's got a reputation for drama. Last year he chewed out a resident over his mom's surgery guy's unraveling." I smiled faintly. Ethan's collapse was fraying his perfect image. My art, my abstracts of Seattle's soul, were my strength. A recent piece, a stormy depiction of the Puget Sound, had sold for $16,000, its raw emotion drawing praise. Ethan and Mia wanted that value for themselves, but I'd outmaneuvered them. The system's cost, my ability to love, lingered in my mind, a shadow over my victory. But with Sophie by my side and Ethan's world crumbling, I felt alive, ready to paint their ruin with every calculated step. The Seattle skyline glowed faintly through the mist, its towers half hidden. As I sat in Sophie's Queen Anne apartment, the gauze still wrapped around my eyes. My retinal surgery had been a success thanks to the pain transfer system that had redirected every agonizing moment to Ethan, my husband, who'd plotted with his lover Mia to blind me for profit. His screams had echoed through Seattle General, his collapse a public unraveling of the charming doctor he pretended to be. Now safe with Sophie, my best friend, I planned my next move. The system born from a dream entity's costly bargain was my weapon, and I'd use it to ensure Ethan and Mia paid for their betrayal. Sophie's apartment smelled of fresh coffee and lavender, a cozy contrast to the hospital's antiseptic chill. She sat across from me, her voice trembling with fury as I recounted everything Ethan and Mia's affair, the drugged tea, their plan to blind me to cash in on my art's soaring value. My abstracts, vivid portraits of Seattle's soul, its rain-soaked streets, its stormy Puget Sound, were fetching high prices, with a recent piece selling for $16,000. Ethan had gloated that my blindness would make them priceless, a tragic story to fuel collectors' frenzy. Sophie slammed her mug down those monsters. "We should storm the hospital, expose them, and get Ethan fired." I shook my head, my voice calm but icy. "Not yet, Sophie. I want them to feel this step by step." Once warm with love for Ethan, my heart was hardening, the system's cost, my ability to love already taking root. I'd met Ethan 5 years ago at a Belltown gallery, his hazel eyes captivated by my chaotic abstract of Pike Place Market. He'd called it a window to my soul, but now I saw his charm for what it was, a mask. Mia, adopted into his family at 13, had always been too close, her laughter trailing him like a shadow. Their bond, once innocent in my eyes, was now a twisted conspiracy. Sophie leaned forward, her tech-savvy mind racing. "What's your plan, Clara? You can't go back to that house." I smiled faintly, the gauze hiding my expression. "I won't. But Ethan's got a surgery scheduled tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. I heard him mention it at the hospital. I set an alarm on my phone for 5:30 p.m., when his procedure would be in full swing. The system would strike again, and this time it would be public. The next day, Sophie helped me settle on her couch, the Seattle rain a soft rhythm outside. My vision was still gone, the gauze a constant reminder of my vulnerability, but my resolve was steel. As the alarm chimed, I knew Ethan was in the operating room, his scalpel poised over a patient. I raised my right wrist to my mouth, my teeth sinking into the skin. The pain was sharp, blood welling up as I bit harder, the system ensuring I felt nothing. I tasted the warm copper, a grim satisfaction settling in my chest. Sophie rushed over, her voice sharp. "Clara, what the hell? Your wrist!" I pulled back, licking the wound lightly. My eyes were bothering me. I lied, my tone pitiful. It might distract me. Sophie's expression softened, guilt flashing in her voice. "God, I should have been watching you closer. Let me bandage that." She hurried to get supplies, her concern. A warmth I clung to even as the system's cost gnawed at me. Love was fading, but friendship held strong. At Seattle, general chaos erupted. Sophie's phone buzzed with a hospital contacts message. Ethan's hand had spasmed mid-surgery, forcing a colleague to take over. The patient's family, enraged, had confronted him outside the operating room. A hot-tempered relative, mistaking Ethan's exit for abandonment, had grabbed a fruit knife from a nearby tray and stabbed him in the abdomen. He was in critical condition and rushed to emergency surgery. I sat back, my bandaged wrist throbbing faintly, a smile curling my lips. The system had worked again, turning Ethan's arrogance into his undoing. Sophie stared at me, her voice low. "Clara, did you know this would happen?" I shook my head, keeping my expression neutral. "I want to be safe, Sophie." But inside I felt a surge of power. My art, my life were mine to protect. The Puget Sound's stormy waves, the misty cascades fueled my abstracts, each a testament to my strength. Ethan and Mia had underestimated me, and now Ethan was paying the price. But the system's cost lingered a shadow over my victory. As Sophie bandaged my wrist, I wondered if I'd ever feel warmth again, or if vengeance would be my only solace. The Seattle rain fell in a steady curtain, its rhythm a backdrop to the chaos unfolding at Seattle General. I sat in Sophie's apartment, my eyes still bandaged, the gauze a temporary prison, but also a shield. My successful retinal surgery has saved my vision. Still, the pain transfer system had saved my life, redirecting the procedure's agony to Ethan, my betraying husband who'd collapsed in agony outside the operating room. Yesterday I'd struck again, biting my wrist during his surgery, causing a spasm that led to a patient's family member stabbing him. Now Ethan lay in critical condition, and I was headed to the hospital to seal his fate. Sophie drove us through the city's slick streets, her silence heavy with questions she didn't ask. I'd told her about Ethan and Mia's affair, their plan to blind me for my art's value. A recent abstract of the Puget Sound had sold for $17,000, its raw emotion fueling their greed. Sophie's loyalty was my anchor, her presence a reminder of the human connection I risked losing to the system's cost, my ability to love. The dream entity's bargain haunted me, but with Ethan's betrayal still raw, I pushed it aside. Justice came first. At the hospital, the emergency ward buzzed with tension. Dr. Patel met us, his voice urgent. "Clara, thank God you're here. Ethan's in the OR, he's awake barely, but we need your signature to start surgery." He pressed a pen into my hand, guiding me to the consent form. Whispers swirled around us, nurses, doctors, all stunned by Ethan's attack. He was in so much pain, one said, screaming about his hand, then this. I gripped the pen, my voice steady. "No anesthesia. Ethan insisted I didn't use it for my surgery. He said he'd do the same. I won't go against his wishes." Gasps rippled through the room. A nurse muttered, "Is she serious?" "He's in agony." Another whispered, "Is she really his wife?" "That's cold." Dr. Patel hesitated, his eyes searching my bandaged face. "Clara, this is different. He's critical." I lifted my chin, my tone unwavering. "He was clear, Dr. Patel. No anesthesia. He said it himself. If he were in my place, he'd handle it." Sophie leaned close, whispering, "I've recorded this, Clara. You're covered." I nodded, signing the form slowly, each stroke a nail in Ethan's coffin. The doors to the OR swung shut and the surgery began. Dr. Patel sighed, his voice low. "Here's what happened. Ethan's hand spasmed during a procedure yesterday. He couldn't hold the scalpel, so we switched surgeons. The patient's family thought he'd abandoned them. One grabbed a fruit knife and stabbed him. The patient's fine, but Ethan..." He trailed off, shaking his head. I nodded, feigning concern. "Is the attacker in custody?" Dr. Patel confirmed. "Yes, police took him. Ethan did nothing wrong technically." A blood-curdling scream erupted from the OR, Ethan's voice raw with pain. "Stop, it hurts!" The cries grew weaker, slurred, as the surgery continued without anesthesia, just as he'd insisted for me. I clutched Sophie's arm, my heart pounding, not with guilt, but with a strange mix of triumph and dread. The system was exacting its price, but so was I. My art and abstracts of Seattle's chaos, its markets and mountains were my legacy. Ethan and Mia had tried to steal them, but I'd turned their greed against them. The OR doors burst open, a nurse shouting, "He's crashing!" Doctors rushed in, their voices overlapping in a frantic chorus. "Defibrillator now." "He's not responding." I stood frozen, Sophie's grip tightening on my arm. Time stretched the rain outside, a distant hum, until the doors creaked open again. Dr. Patel emerged, his face grim. "I'm sorry, Clara. We couldn't save him." My knees buckled and I collapsed into Sophie's arms, sobs racking my body. They were an act convincing enough to silence the whispers around us. Sophie wailed her cries, overly dramatic, playing along. But as I wept, my wrist throbbed. The system's effect had ended, my pain returning. I regretted biting so hard, but not the outcome. Ethan was gone, his betrayal buried with him. My art and life were mine again, but the system's cost lingered, a hollow ache in my chest, where love once lived. As Sophie held me, I wondered if this victory was worth the price, or if I'd traded one prison for another. The Seattle rain had stopped, leaving a damp chill as I stood outside our Capitol Hill home. My vision was partially restored, but still hazy after the retinal surgery. Ethan's funeral was a week ago, his death in the operating room, a grim victory orchestrated by the pain transfer system I'd bound to him. The system, a gift from a dream entity years ago, had redirected my surgical pain to him, then caused a spasm that led to his stabbing by an enraged patient's family. His plot with Mia, his adopted sister and lover, to close my eyes to my art's soaring value had collapsed, but the cost, my ability to love, was a shadow growing in my chest. Now I was back to collect my belongings, ready to sever ties with this house of betrayal. The front door creaked open, and Linda, Ethan's mother, stood there, her sharp eyes cold and unyielding. "Clara," she said, her voice clipped, "saves me the trouble of tracking you down. Come in." Inside, Mia sprawled on the couch, her auburn hair loose, a smug smile curling her lips. "Sis-in-law," she drawled, her tone mocking, "I hear the hospital's settlement was hefty. You're not planning to keep it all, are you?" I set my bag down, my gaze steady despite the blur in my vision. The settlement compensation for Ethan's death during work hours was substantial, but I'd already consulted a lawyer. Legally, I said the settlement can be treated as inheritance. As Ethan's mother and wife, Linda and I split it evenly. This house is marital property, so Linda gets a quarter after I sell. I'll transfer her share. Linda's face softened slightly. She'd lost a son after all, but Mia's smirk vanished. "That money's mine too," Mia snapped, standing and rubbing her lower belly. "I'm pregnant with Ethan's child. An illegitimate kid still has inheritance rights." My stomach twisted, not with shock, but with grim anticipation. I'd suspected their bond was more profound than it seemed. Mia, adopted at 13 after her mother's death, had always clung to Ethan, their laughter filling Linda's house during their teens. I'd once thought it sweet, but Sophie's comment weeks ago that they looked oddly alike had sparked a suspicion I'd acted on. I pulled 2 documents from my bag, my voice calm. "You should see these." I'd collected Ethan's hair the day he came to Sophie's and Mia's from a comb at the funeral. A DNA test confirmed they were half-siblings sharing a father, Linda's late husband. I said Ethan and Mia were blood relatives, handing the results to Linda. "Their child faces serious genetic risks." Mia's face paled, her hands snatching the papers. She scanned them, then threw them to the floor with a sharp smack. "This is fake, Clara. Ethan's dead. Where'd you even get his DNA?" I turned to Linda, whose hands trembled as she picked up the report. "You saw it too, didn't you?" I said softly, their eyes almost identical. "You knew something was off." Linda's face crumpled, her voice breaking. "I suspected." "Mia's mother was a homewrecker. I hated her, but I took Mia in for Ethan's sake. And now this?" She whirled on Mia, shoving her to the floor. "You shameless thing. You ruined my son just like your mother destroyed my marriage. Get out!" Mia scrambled to her knees, clutching Linda's legs. "Mom, don't listen to Clara. She's lying to split us up." But Linda's gaze was icy resolute. Mia turned to me, desperation in her eyes. "Clara, please, I was wrong. Say something for me." I crouched, gripping her chin, my voice a whisper. "Ethan drugged me to sleep with you. You planned to blind me. What should I do?" Mia froze, her eyes wide. "You knew. You have 1 hour to pack and leave," I said, standing. "Or I'll tell your company about your affair. Good luck keeping that job." Mia's face drained of color. She scrambled up, grabbing her things. Linda called after her, her voice cold. "If you dare give birth to that child, I'll make sure it never sees the light of day." Mia stumbled out, tears streaming, the door slamming behind her. Linda sank onto the couch, wiping her eyes. "Clara, I don't want the money. Just let me keep this house. It's all I have of Ethan." Her plea tugged at me, but I shook my head. "This place is a cage of memories. I'm selling it." I packed my canvases, each a piece of my soul, abstracts of Seattle's rain, mountains, and chaos. My latest, a $17,000 sale, had captured the city's stormy heart. As I left, the system's cost weighed on me. Love was gone, but my art and strength remained. The Portland sky was a canvas of soft pinks as I stood in my new studio, a loft overlooking the Willamette River. 3 years had passed since I sold the Seattle house, leaving behind the betrayal of Ethan and Mia, whose plot to blind me had been undone by the pain transfer system. Its power had saved my vision, but cost me my ability to love, a price I felt in the quiet moments when my heart refused to stir. My retinal surgery had restored my sight, and I'd thrown myself into painting, creating abstracts that captured the raw emotion of my darkest days. My work, vivid swirls of Portland's bridges, its misty forests, had won national awards, with a recent piece fetching $20,000 at a gallery show. I'd moved to Portland to escape the ghosts of Seattle, the city where Ethan's charm had once won me, where Mia's laughter had masked her malice. The pain transfer system, a gift from a dream entity after a near-fatal car crash years ago, had been my salvation and my curse. Its final act, causing Ethan's death during his surgery, had freed me, but the hollow ache in my chest grew. Love was a faded painting, its colors lost to time. Yet my art thrived, each canvas, a testament to my resilience. Sophie, my lifeline through it all, had stayed close, her tech job bringing her to Portland often. She'd called last week, inviting me to her wedding in Seattle, a chance to return to where it began. As I packed my brushes, memories flooded: Ethan's drugged tea, Mia's smug smile, the DNA test, revealing their half-sibling bond. After Mia was expelled from the house, Sophie kept tabs on her. Mia, defiant, had given birth to Ethan's child, but the baby was diagnosed with cerebral palsy, a tragic consequence of their genetic tie. Desperate, Mia had begged Linda for help, even taunting her to harm the child. Hardened by loss, Linda had walked away, leaving Mia to spiral. One night, Mia took the child to a beach near Seattle, abandoning it in the waves. Dashcam footage captured her act, leading to her arrest for premeditated murder. The news had reached me in Portland, a grim footnote to my victory. Linda, meanwhile, had left Seattle, traveling with friends to escape her grief. I'd sent her a share of the settlement, but she never responded. The house, sold for a fortune, had funded my new life and art. At Sophie's wedding, the Seattle air was crisp, the Space Needle glinting in the distance. The ceremony was vibrant, filled with laughter and flowers, starkly contrasting the darkness I'd left behind. Sophie tossed her bouquet, and it landed in my hands, her bright smile warming me. "Clara, you're next," she teased, her voice full of hope. I smiled back, breathing in the flower's scent, but my heart stayed silent. The system's cost was absolute. I'd never love again. Not romantically, not sincerely. Men had come into my life, kind, talented, drawn to my art, but my soul remained untouched, a gallery of solitude. As we danced under the stars, Sophie leaned close, her voice soft. "You're okay." After everything, I nodded, my smile genuine. "I'm free, Sophie. That's enough." My art had become my joy, each canvas a story of survival. My latest series, inspired by those blind days, had toured nationally, its raw emotion earning praise. I'd painted the Puget Sound's fury, the Cascades' mist, my pain and triumph woven into every stroke. Back in Portland, I stood in my studio, a new canvas waiting. The Willamette River sparkled outside its flow, a quiet promise. I'd lost love, but gained peace, a life built on my terms. The system's power was gone, its purpose served, but its cost lingered, a silent trade for my freedom. I picked up my brush, vivid colors in my restored eyes, and began to paint. This solitary but whole life was mine, and it was enough.